Money formulas for saving, spending, and budgeting. Do they work? The 50-30-20 plan, the 70-20-10 rule, the 20-20-30-30 budget, all these apps and tips and tricks that are out there, can they really help to make you wealthier? Let's explore that today. I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. I used to carry around a gold coin kind of similar to this one right here. Not to spend, but because it reminded me of wealth, and it was a symbol for me of what was to come and what I could achieve financially. As a thank you for your support, I want to give you a little piece of motivation to remind you of what you can achieve and the results that you can get in life. So, when this channel hits 500 subscribers, I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. These coins are real currency from around the world that have been plated in 100 mils of fine gold. Now, this might not make you rich, but it just might give you enough inspiration, as sometimes just holding a little bit of wealth in your hands can make you feel a certain way and drive you to go out and achieve the best results. My hope is that you not only achieve all of your financial goals, but also that you then take that knowledge and go out and pass it back to the world. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, like this video, and you are automatically in the running. As long as money has been around, people have been wondering two things. First, how to make more money, and second, how to keep it. And as long as they've been wondering that, there has been the formula of budgeting. What is budgeting exactly, and how can it help us? Dave Ramsey has this great quote that says, all a budget is you telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And that's very true, because most of us do wonder where our hard-earned money goes at the end of the week or month. Warren Buffett, the great investor, said, you shouldn't save what is left after spending, but you should spend what is left after saving. What is he alluding to? A budget, of course. If you have a budget, your money is doing a certain thing and you're able to pay your bills and maybe save a little bit on top of it. But you should think about the saving part first. So how does one do that exactly? Budgeting is simply the bridge between pain and pleasure. That's it. We go to work, and maybe it's painful to go to work. Maybe you don't like your job. Maybe it's tough. Maybe you don't like your boss. Maybe you have to take a train or a bus to get to work. Maybe you sit in traffic for hours to get to your place of work. Maybe when you get there, you don't have the greatest boss. Maybe you don't get along with a particular coworker, and you just dream of doing something else. But it is painful sometimes to go to work and do our job, no matter what it is. It might even be a physically demanding job. Maybe you're working outside in the hot sun or the extreme cold, or lifting heavy items or doing construction. Whatever it is, there are certain real pains that come with having a job and going to work. Why do we do that? Well, because of the other side of the bridge, right? The pleasure side. Maybe you want to take a better vacation. Maybe you want to buy your first home, drive a better car because you do sit in traffic all day. Maybe you want to buy a better education for your children. Maybe you want to go back to school. All of those things would be considered you gaining a pleasure, even if it's just a night out or a fancy meal or, taking the whole family on an awesome trip. These things are the pleasurable reasons that we go and do the pain of a job. But are we budgeting? Well, the statistics say that 75 to 80% of people, when polled, and I do not agree with the polls, so just know this, say that they are on a budget. 75 to 80%. Yet 65% say that they are stressed out mostly by finances. Over 40% say that they have a lot of outstanding debt that they find difficult to deal with. They're thinking about that. And 25% say that that debt is unmanageable. I don't even want to know what that means. Unmanageable debt. So you're telling me that 75 to 80% of people say they're on a budget, yet we have all these statistics showing that most people are in debt and that many of them consider their debt unmanageable? Well, how can that be true? What we should be doing is thinking about a budget. See, you're going to make the money. I mean, that's the great part. You're going to go out. Hopefully, you're a productive person who's working and earning, and you are going to make the money. Most people don't realize that they actually will earn in a 40-year career over $1 million, many cases over $2 million, but they don't have much of it. Why? No budgeting. So we're going to talk about a couple of the most popular ones today, and we're going to see how they could actually work to help you become more wealthy. The first and most popular one, if you're just Google McSchmoogling this information, is the 50-30-20. 50-30-20 budgeting plan says 50% of the money that comes in is for your needs, like what you absolutely need to live. 30% would be for your wants. 20% would be for your savings and long-term debt repayment. Okay, so let's just talk about that for a second. If you can live off 50%, I think that's great. I mean, that's giving you a whole another 50% to do other things with, including put into a savings category. But most people don't. What most people do is they really have themselves on what's called a 50-50 plan. So without even thinking of it, as money comes in, they just spend down. And when they reach about 50%, they say, oh, shiza, I have bills coming up. I have rent next week. I have a car payment coming up or an insurance payment, or I've got that thing coming up that I have to go and do, and I need money for that. So once they've spent down a bunch of money, because they're spending first, not saving first, they then realize that they're going to have to play catch up. But they tell themselves they have another check coming in a week, so I will take most of that and put it away so that I can save it or pay my bills. So they're really on a 50-50 plan, aren't they? Right? They're supposed to be on a 50-30-20, but 50% gets spent, and now they only have 50% left, and it's not enough to pay their bills because they're overspending, and they're going to incur late fees and all kinds of other things. But what they do is say, I've got more money coming in. So 50-50 definitely doesn't work. On the 50-30-20, the 30% for your wants, I believe, is a little bit high. So this one I don't really agree with. 30% for just your wants in this category probably wouldn't work. I think 30% is going to be okay, and I will show you later how it is going to be okay, but I think 30% towards just your wants may be high for most people, only because they aren't dividing up the other categories appropriately, and they tend to spend the 30% and then dip into one of the other categories because, well, they just want more. 20% for saving and long-term debt repayment. At first, that sounded really good to me. I'm like, oh, okay, 20% for savings and long-term debt repayment, but then I started thinking, well, why the long-term debt repayment mixed in with the savings? See, if you put money away and it's supposed to be for saving, it should be for saving. Whether it's your emergency fund or whether it's truly just a savings account to save for something more important later on, then why mix it in with long-term debt repayment money? I mean, that could be anything. It could be a car payment, it could be insurance payment, it could be a vacation that you put on a credit card that you're still paying for. You have long-term debts, and those must be paid. So isn't that a need? Don't you need to pay back the money that you spent already? That should just go in needs. So if 50% isn't enough, then maybe you should put more into needs. This is a simple fix, of course, because you can do anything you want with these numbers. That's the beauty of a budget. Another popular trending budgeting system says the 70-20-10. 70% should go towards your needs, which I think that's a lot. If you have 70% going towards your needs, you've created a lot of needs. You're spending a lot of money in a lot of categories and maybe more than you quote unquote need to spend. But the 70-20-10 looks like this: 70% towards your needs, 20% towards your long-term savings and debt repayment, and 10% towards your wants. Now, I like the 10% towards your wants. Like, that's pretty good. It might even be too low, right? You're liable to get in a cycle where you're constantly dipping into your other funds because you want things and you feel like you're working hard and you're unable to obtain them because you're only putting 10% towards your wants. So that may be a little low, and a lot of people don't tend to stick to this one. The 20% towards savings and debt repayment, once again, it's the same system. You're dividing two things and you're also mixing in needs with savings. Savings should just be dedicated savings, whether it's an emergency fund or it's just long-term short-term savings that you're not going to use. A plan that I like better, like what I use and have used, even though I've altered the numbers, all my life, I've altered them to suit my needs during that time. But a good basis is 30-30-30-10. And I really love this one. I tell it to a lot of people, and people seem to migrate towards it. 30-30-30-10. That makes up our 100% of our income. The first 30%, you've heard of it, paying yourself first. Now, why would I do that? Why would I take 30% right off the top and just give it to me? That is my wants. I work hard. I feel like I'm, killing myself, sometimes going through a lot of pain, that pain of working. And if you don't give yourself some sort of reward within reason, then you're going to get frustrated and you're going to dip into the other areas anyway. So giving myself that first 30%, that's me paying myself first. What do I do with that money? Well, that goes right in my pocket. Let's just say for round numbers, it was $1,000 a week. Let's say you are making $1,000 a week. That means the first $300, you're just lobbing off the top right for you. The second 30%, that is for what I call short-term bills. So that's your needs. Your short-term bills, that's things you have to pay right away, whether it's gas in your car, whether it is your rent, whether it is your utilities, your cell phone bill, any other bills. Maybe you have a Netflix account that you have to pay. So you're going to take that all out of your short-term bills. The third 30% is for long-term bills, and you can use that for investments if you build it up. So I tend to pull some of that out over time. Short-term bills, 30%, long-term bills, 30%. What's a long-term bill? Some people pay their insurances bi-monthly, or they pay them every 6 months. Some people make a one lump sum payment a year because they get a bigger discount, but you usually get a pretty decent discount for paying every 6 months. Some people have a medical bill. That's something that comes up but is not there all the time. Maybe you had a trip to the emergency room. Maybe you got sick. Maybe you had to get some prescriptions or medications. So long-term bills are different. Let's just say something happened to my home and the kids in the next door house hit a ball through a window and I had to pay the deductible on the insurance. That's something I don't have every month, but it came up and now I've got to come up with $1,000. The first 30% being for me, that's me paying myself first. The second 30% covers all my short-term bills. The third 30% covers all long-term bills. And the last 10% is what I call my POM. That's my peace of mind money. That's my peace of mind account. It's essentially a savings account. It can be your emergency fund. I put 10% right off the top into that POM account. Now, the beauty of this system is if 6 months go by and I don't use much out of that third 30%, I can then choose to move it over time into my POM account. I can do whatever I want with that money because it hasn't gotten used. So it has acted essentially as a long-term bill fund, but there should be leftover money in there because the long-term bills don't happen all the time. When they do, the money is there. I've built it up, but I usually end up skimming from that. There is another area that I skim from to put into savings too. That is that first 30%. I said if you're making $1,000 a week, you're going to take $300 for you, $300 for your short term, $300 for your long term, and then 10% for your POM. But I tend to notice that I don't spend a lot of money. I mean, my bills are getting paid out of all the monies that are coming in, and that $300 that I personally may stick in my wallet every month, every week, that doesn't get spent all the time. In other words, the end of the week comes and maybe I only spend $180, so I have $120 left. Well, I can choose what to do with that $120. I can either put it right into my POM and save it for later. I could also just leave it in my wallet and leave it in there. Next week when I add another $300, now I have $420, right? So now I have more money for my week if I want to do some excessive spending, or there is that thing that I have been wanting, right? This is my wants money. I usually tend to put it away or maybe divide it up amongst all of the accounts because I figure I didn't need it. So let's just pretend I don't have it, and I tend to put it away. So at the end of the day, the beauty of creating a budget can make you wealthier. The wealthiest people in the world do have a budget, meaning they do watch what they spend, they watch what category they spend it in, and they divide it up in a way of percentages that makes sense for them. Maybe 30-30-30-10 is not going to work for you. Maybe you need more money in one of those other categories. But the point is to just literally write it down, take it in your little black book, and just put it in there and then follow that to a T. I literally just divide up the money right when I get it. Every check that comes in gets divided up just like that, 30, 30, 30, 10. So play with the percentages and do what ends up ultimately working for you. The great Epictetus, an outstanding thinker in his time, said having great wealth consists of not in having many items, but in having few wants. And I have a few wants, and one of those wants is I want you to be great with money. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching the Almost Criminal Millionaire, and if you enjoy the topics of money, financing, and learning how to get the most out of your bank account, then please like and subscribe.